Hi, my name is Tyler with Electric Personal Training, and today we are talking about gym etiquette. Now, gym etiquette is basically our rules that are completely unwritten and can be difficult to figure out if you're new to working out, that we're going to follow to make sure that we are being as respectful as possible and allowing people to use the gym while using it in our own way and not getting in each other's way. The first thing we need to agree on before we begin this is that the gym is a shared space. Unless you're working out completely alone at home, the gym is a shared space. And this is something we need to agree on because it's going to affect how we are going to treat the equipment and how we're going to treat each other. It can be very easy to get into the mindset of doing your workout regardless of who's around because it's your workout and that's what you're going to do. But we do need to acknowledge that the gym is a shared space. Gym equipment is extremely expensive, and your monthly dues are your way of paying for a small part of the gym. You're paying to share it with everybody else who's paying dues. Now, I always encourage anyone who disagrees with this to look at the price of the leg press in your gym and do the math of how many months of dues it would take for you to cover just that leg press, not even the plates, not the maintenance, not the installation, just the leg press, because they tend to range between the 2,000 and 3,000 range, which means you're paying dues for 50 years in order to actually cover it. You're paying a very small amount of money compared to the cost of the equipment, which is often in tens of thousands of dollars. Because of this, we need to be treating the equipment with respect as well as each other. Now, depending on the size of the gym, it is going to change how much we have to factor in our gym etiquette, but either way, it's going to be something we need to think about. Now, part of that is going to be taking into account that we are sharing this equipment as well, and so we should be trying our best not to damage it, and we'll go through a few ways to avoid damaging equipment. But oftentimes, we get into the mindset of, it's not my equipment, I'm just renting it. But since we're sharing this space, we want to minimize the amount of time that equipment is unusable, and we want to minimize the amount of damage we're causing the gym owners on that piece of equipment. We also want to be mindful of when we're going to the gym, because for individuals who like to take up more space, that might be okay, but you need to take that into account when you're going to the gym. If you're going during peak hours, that is usually 6 to 9 in the morning, the before work crowd, and 5 to 7 at night, the after work crowd, that's usually going to be our two biggest blocks at most gyms where you're going to see the most traffic. You shouldn't be demanding large amounts of space, and that's something you need to decide. If you're someone who wants to take up more space, it might take you blocking your training into the later evening, like the 8 to 10 o'clock block, or the super early morning so you can avoid those crowds and take up space without getting in anyone's way. Now, without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into our first thing we need to consider, which is how we are taking up equipment and what equipment we are allowed to use. All right, so we made it to the gym. We know that we're sharing this space. We're going to do our best to make sure that we're not getting in anyone's way. Now that we've got that in our heads, we're going to make sure we're following that, and we're going to claim our first pieces of equipment that we're going to be using for our first exercise. I mean, the equipment is really the most important part of the gym because that's what we're here for. That's the reason we're not working out at home, is because the gym has all the equipment. That being said, we need to share this equipment, so there's a couple guidelines when it comes to claiming equipment. For movable pieces of equipment, that is things like dumbbells, plates, and resistance bands, we're simply going to place them adjacent to us off of where they are originally placed. That means placing them at our feet or somewhere near that, or on a bench that we're using. If we're claiming immovable pieces of equipment, that is usually machines, or if your benches are bolted down and you can't move them close to you, then we're going to use a piece of our equipment to claim it down, our own personal equipment. That could be a water bottle, it could be a gym bag, it could be a belt, it could be your straps, just something to show everybody else in the gym, this is something I'm using. I might not be on it at the moment, I might be resting, I might be alternating with a separate exercise, but this isn't just free for anyone to take. Now, typically the limit is 2 machines or sets of dumbbells. You don't want to be taking 4 sets of dumbbells and hogging them from the rest of the gym. You don't want to be taking 3 or 4 machines and blocking out an entire block of the machines. That's just going to make other people frustrated, and it's usually not necessary. If you find yourself wanting to do this, I highly encourage you to split up your workout more so you don't need such excessive amounts of equipment at one time. Now, when it comes to claiming 2 machines, we want to make sure we're following the wallet rule. Now, the wallet rule is what I refer to as the best way to make sure you're not claiming things in a way that is confusing. Say you walk into the gym and you want to go do your leg extensions, you see the leg extension machine and there's a water bottle around it, but there's nobody else around. The gym's not crowded, there's nobody within 50 feet. It's extremely frustrating then to take the leg extension, assuming no one's using it, there's no one around, and then someone comes up to you and says, hey, I was using that. And then it turns into a conflict, all because it wasn't clear who was using what. So the wallet rule is what we're gonna use for that. And what that is would you be comfortable leaving your wallet there? That's all you have to ask yourself. So if I were to do squats and captain's chair raises here, I have the captain's chair, I have the Smith machine. I'm not actually gonna leave my wallet there just in case there are still bad actors in every gym who would happily take something that was just laying there. I highly recommend using inexpensive objects as your markers. That's straps, water bottle, bag, something that you would be okay losing if for some reason a bad person came and took your items. It can happen, it usually doesn't, but unfortunately it is a risk we have to come to terms with. But if, I would be completely comfortable leaving my wallet 5 feet from me. I would be comfortable leaving it within line of sight of me. That's basically the idea we're going of here, is if someone approaches that piece of equipment, are they gonna be able to find you? The person who is using that equipment to approach you, hey, can I work in? Or hey, are you still using that? Because it does happen, that sometimes you forget your water bottle, you forget your headphones at the last machine that you were using, and someone might think it's claimed. So it's a great way to get rid of that ambiguity is to use the wallet rule. Are we okay to claim these two equipment pieces that are super far off, or should we maybe just hit one and then hit the other so we're not causing confusion in the gym? Now, when it comes to claiming equipment, one of the biggest issues we see in the gym is working off the rack. We don't just want to be splitting the actual equipment between people, but also the space. So you may have seen individuals at your gym doing rows or curls right off the rack. That means using the actual rack as though it is a piece of equipment here to work off of. The rack is not a piece of equipment to claim. The rack is a public area that you should be in and out of. You should be at least a few feet from the rack at all times that you're not grabbing or replacing weights, because other people need to grab and replace weights. If I'm grabbing the 15 here to do my rows, I'm also blocking off the 45s and the 50s that are right below me. And someone's going to have to interrupt my set, which is also rude, to be able to reach the weight that they might need. So we want to avoid working off of the rack whenever we can. All right, so we've claimed our equipment, we've got our bench here. How long can we bench for? How long can we use this equipment for without frustrating the people around us? Now, that's a great question, but it doesn't have a great answer. The true answer is it depends. So here's a couple things to think about when you're deciding how long you're going to be on a piece of equipment. The first question you need to ask yourself, and the most important, is how long do I actually need it for? If you need a deadlift platform for 30 minutes to do your tough sets of deadlifts, that's okay as long as you're pushing yourself. If you're able to get in and out on a bench press in 10 minutes, great. You could take a few extra minutes, but if you're in and out, cool. Usually the quicker the better, but do what you need. If you need more time, if you genuinely need that time to rest, use the equipment for longer. There's no time limits on anything here. That being said, try not to linger on equipment. Don't talk to people while hanging on other pieces of equipment. Don't sit on your phone and browse Instagram for 10 minutes while sitting on equipment. Realize that the equipment might not seem in high demand, but you should assume it is. You want to be in and out as fast as you can without cutting yourself short. You don't want to rush so that you don't make anyone mad. People are going to understand that you're working through your sets, you're doing your workout. However, if it starts to approach 45 minutes to an hour on a single piece of equipment, people will become frustrated. They will also become frustrated if they see you are not actually working. That's why I urge people to avoid sitting on their phone for more than a few minutes, because it gives the appearance that we're not actually working and we're just lingering on the piece of equipment. At the end of the day, all that matters is how long you actually need the piece of equipment for. Take enough rest in between sets, do what you have to do to get a good workout in, but don't stay on the equipment for excessive amounts of time so that others cannot use it if you are not using it. All right, so we know how to claim equipment. We've claimed our equipment. We're making sure we're working, we're pushing ourselves, we're not lingering too long. Let's go ahead and do some reps here. What do we need to consider while we're actually working, while we're doing our set? The main thing to consider when doing your set is your volume. Now, volume is going to be something that everybody naturally handles differently. Some people are going to exhale extremely loudly. Some people are going to grunt. Some people are going to just grimace and not make any noises at all. It is okay to make a bit of noise in the gym. It's okay to exhale really loudly as you press those last few reps out. That's totally natural. It's also partially a result of squeezing your core and forcing the air out as you push. That's totally okay. You should never feel any shame in making a little bit of noise. That being said, we do want to minimize this in our being excessive with noise. Grunting is acceptable. Exhaling loudly is acceptable. The hissing is pretty common, but we shouldn't be vocal. We shouldn't be screaming. We shouldn't be making it our job to get past everybody's headphones so that they know we're deadlifting heavy or that we're benching heavy. Usually, as long as you're not making it through other people's headphones, they won't even notice, and most natural responses as far as producing volume while you're exercising aren't gonna get past people's headphones, and so it really doesn't matter. Most people are listening to music, it's okay to make a little bit of noise. That being said though, we don't wanna be going out of our way to be excessively loud and ruining other people's experience. All right, we finished our first exercise. Let's go ahead and wrap up with this equipment. Let's put it away. This is an important part that I think a lot of people fall short of. Firstly, do we need to wipe our equipment down? Yeah, you do. And if you're asking yourself that ever, yeah, you do. That is the straight up answer. If you're asking yourself that, if you're not sure, wipe it down. It's not gonna hurt anybody. Now, there might be a few times where you're okay not wiping it down. Like if you only use dumbbells for some light curls and you didn't even get a sweat on, you're probably fine. But it's always better safe than sorry. We want to reduce the amount of body fluid that we're transferring, usually in the form of sweat, because things like ringworm can spread through that, which will ruin people's experiences. It's also just gross, and nobody wants to use a sweaty bench. A couple non-starters for you absolutely must wipe that down are this equipment that it has this padding on it. Anything that has padding or mats, you absolutely need to wipe down. It's going to absorb that sweat, and so you need to use the disinfectant spray that your gym has or the wet wipes with disinfectant in them to really kill anything that might be lingering on the mat material. Because while metal isn't going to absorb your sweat and you can usually get away with wiping it off and not worrying about it, this is going to absorb it and let it soak in while you're working, and so there might be some liquid in there that contains some really gross stuff that we want to make sure is gone before the next person uses it. Now, it's just as annoying to use a sweaty bench as a soaked bench. Don't overspray or over apply disinfectant. It should be relatively dry when you're done wiping it off. It should be a wipe and not a mop. You're not covering it, you're not drenching it. A couple sprays onto the paper towel or onto the equipment and a wipe. It's that simple. We don't want to leave things super wet, either with sweat or disinfectant, because disinfectant is pretty nasty and it doesn't really smell great either. So we're just gonna want to make sure we get rid of that in its entirety whenever we can. Now, the other main thing we want to talk about when we're putting away equipment is you need to re-rack every pound of weight that you put on there. Leave it like it was or better. There's no way around that. The bar can stay, the bar goes here, but every plate needs to be off it. There is really no justification for the idea that, oh, the leg press can be left with a 45 on each side because most people do at least a 45. Well, not all people do a 45. I can tell you that at most of your commercial gyms, the people responsible for re-racking are your front desk staff. So if you go with the logic of, oh, well, it's someone's job to take care of this. Yes, it is. But they're usually not the people you think they are. It's not the personal trainers who can bench 300 pounds that are doing it. It's the high school and college kids who are working at the front desk who might be struggling with that kind of weight, especially on something like a leg press that might be placed higher up. I've had people all the time approach me at gyms asking me to re-rack things that other people have left unracked because they can't lift it. Everybody has a right to enjoy the fitness environment. We're sharing the space. And by putting a 45-pound plate about 5 feet up on the leg press cart, well, if I have an individual who's 5 feet tall and 90 pounds, well, they're not going to be able to control that weight and safely remove it if that's not the weight they want to use. So never leave any weight on the bar, on the machine, anything like that. Now, this doesn't apply to machines that use pin stacks. You can just leave the pin in because that's easy to change. The idea is if it takes any effort whatsoever to move the weight, remove it. We don't want to be making it difficult for anybody to work, and we don't want to gatekeep any exercises that we think everybody can do a 45 on or everybody can do a 25 on. That's not true for everybody, and we shouldn't be making those kind of assumptions about everyone in the gym. This is also going to apply to dumbbells and other pieces of equipment. They need to be fully re-racked to where they belong. This does not mean just left on the floor. They should be put back on the rack. Now, by re-racking everything, we also get rid of even more ambiguity when it comes to claiming things. It's all too common to go into a gym and see a bench set up with a 25 on each side. Well, there's no water bottle, but it's loaded. Someone must be using it, yeah? Well, maybe someone just didn't re-rack it. And if everybody would just re-rack, this wouldn't be an issue. We'd know, okay, 25's on the bar, someone's using it. We wouldn't even need to claim it. But it just acts as another form of reinforcement as to is someone using it or not. If we actually re-rack, then we know that an empty bar with nothing around it is clear and good to go. We want to reduce confusion as much as possible because then we're going to reduce the amount of conflict we run into while we're at the gym. All right, so we know how to do our first exercise. We've set it up, we've claimed our equipment, we've done our sets, we've put all the equipment away, we've wiped everything down. Perfect. Let's go to our next one. Well, there's some etiquette here too. We need to be conscious of what is moving while we are traveling throughout the gym. If someone is actively moving that is working through their set, just a small tap can set them off balance so much that they end up dropping their lift. And that is a huge issue. We want to avoid that. That is going to be a huge source of conflict. Now, what that means is just scanning the area before we move. Okay, there's a squat bar moving there. There's some dumbbells moving there. I'm going to go between so I don't get in the way of either of them. Now keep in mind, that doesn't always mean not touching it, but also not triggering the anxiety of someone who may have had this experience before. That means if there are plates on the bottom of the squat rack that you need and someone is actively squatting, that bar is moving up and down, even though you can get in without getting tapped by it, just wait. It's worth waiting a minute to save that person's lift without making them worry about whether you're going to stumble, hit their bar, and knock 200 pounds off their back. Usually the best piece of advice is to just avoid anything that is moving by about 3 to 4 feet, usually even more. But try to stay away from everything that's moving and don't let the person who's lifting think you might even run into them. Don't go too close because you're still going to worry them. Even if you're agile enough to avoid the moving bar, there's no point in playing with fire. Let's just give it a minute, wait, and then grab your equipment. Now, the more populated your gym is, the more likely it is that you're going to run into individuals who want to talk to you, not necessarily for social reasons, but just because they may have an idea that will benefit both of you. Maybe they want to work together on a piece of equipment and alternate using it because it won't affect either of your workouts. Maybe they need your help on something. That could be the case. Or maybe there's an issue with your form that they'd like to correct, or maybe there isn't an issue with your form that they'd like to correct. These are all situations you're likely going to run into. So let's go ahead and address them. Firstly, we're going to talk about the idea of working in. If someone asks to work in with you, what they're trying to do is share that equipment with you. Maybe you're alternating, maybe you're just using one piece of equipment and taking a minute or 2 minute rest. That 1 or 2 minutes is enough for someone else to squeeze a set in. Couple things to note when it comes to working in. It's entirely up to you if you're claiming 1 or 2 pieces of equipment, if you're going to allow someone to work in, but usually in the gym community, we like to do it. We want to be polite. So I highly encourage you to just let people work in. Now, it's not rude for you to ask them to wipe things down in between working in. We want to minimize bodily fluid transfer. So it's not rude at all to say, yeah, of course, can you just wipe it down in between? Be polite about it, but there's no issue with that, especially if you're working with an individual who's very sweaty. You don't want to sit on a wet seat to do your next set. No issue. Now, the other form of assistance that people might ask from you is a spot. Now, a spot is your way of helping someone stay safe in the gym. A lot of people work out alone and don't have a partner to spot them, and it's very respectful to help them if you feel comfortable. There's nothing wrong with saying, I don't feel comfortable, I just started in the gym, that's heavy weight, I don't feel comfortable spotting you at 270 pounds. That's a lot of weight. There's nothing wrong with that. No one's going to take offense from that. If you don't feel comfortable, you need to realize that your role as a spotter is to ensure that person's safety. So if you can't do that, if you don't feel comfortable in doing that, then don't do it. That won't hurt the person's feelings in most cases, and they're just going to find someone else who can. I do encourage you to learn how to spot, however, because in most cases when you're spotting someone, you only need to lift 20 to 40 pounds worth of weight off of them for them to finish the rep and re-rack the weight. So it can be a useful skill to pick up. All right, let's go ahead and address one of the biggest issues that people see with gym etiquette, and that is the unwanted trainer. That is someone who is correcting your form. They might be better off, they might know better, they might not. It's really a gamble. It might be something you are doing that could injure you that is wrong. It might be something you're doing differently that they don't understand. Either way, it's up to you to determine if you value their advice or not, but I encourage you to at least be polite in accepting their conversation and not being excessively rude. This will only stir up conflict, and we want to avoid conflict in the gym. Now, I highly encourage you not to be that person. Everybody is training for different things, and most exercises people are doing are not going to fit into your program. So they may not be exercises you fully understand. You may not understand the purpose of it, but in most cases, it's really not your business to be telling other people how to work out. So I highly encourage you, just keep it to yourself unless there is a safety issue. This is the one exception where you are going to do something to help another gym goer. Now, what you're not going to do is be the unwanted trainer and go tell them, hey, that's not how you squat. Hey, that's not how you deadlift. Try this. If you find someone doing something unsafe, I highly recommend you speak to gym staff. Have someone who works with the gym address it, because it is good to inform people who may be uninformed, especially younger people who don't have very much training experience, who may also lack a guardian to help them lift in a safe way. If you see a 12-year-old kid putting 225 on a squat rack, it may be worth telling the gym staff that, hey, that looks unsafe. Can someone at least go check on them? Can someone make sure they know what they're doing? Because that way you're not being pretentious in an I know better than you way, but just in a concerned, I don't want that person to hurt themselves way. Because it is common for people to do things that can hurt them, and we want to address that in a way that is respectful and safe. Now, when it comes to dealing with individuals who refuse to follow our gym etiquette, it's going to happen. And it usually happens on both ends of the spectrum. There's people who are new and don't really know. It's not their fault. So it's not intentional, but they just don't understand. And there's people who are really advanced who think they're above the law in some way. These are usually the two main people that we're seeing violating this code. Now, this code is unwritten, so a lot of people don't understand it, and I highly encourage you to share it with anybody who does not understand gym code, just so they can kind of understand. It might not be that they're trying to break rules. They just don't understand them because they're not written anywhere. Gyms don't ever show people the right way to do these things, but you will annoy the people around you if you're actively avoiding these rules. Either way, be respectful about it. We want to be respectful and mitigate conflicts. Usually, we are going to run into a huge conflict if you correct someone on both their form or their etiquette. So just like we did with the form, if we see something dangerous or if we see something that is blatantly ignoring gym etiquette, it's disrespectful. Someone's dropping weights, they're screaming at the top of their lungs, they're taking up too much equipment, don't address it yourself. Don't start a conflict, go to the front desk and tell someone who works for the gym. It's their job to handle that and make sure everyone is able to use the equipment properly. It is going to be nothing but bad news for you if you stir up a conflict in the gym over a disagreement. And that's pretty much it for gym etiquette. There's not really much to it as far as complications. It's just a few basic rules we want to make sure we are understanding. And you can really arrive on those conclusions on your own as long as we're really considering the gym a shared space. It's something that you're paying for. You're paying for, your hour workout a day on that equipment and nothing else. And it's just the equipment you're using. Don't be excessive. Don't get in people's way. Always think, if you're ever worried, am I in someone's way? Just take a minute, look around. Is there something within 2 feet of me that someone might need access to? Am I taking more equipment than would be fair to the other gym goers? And like I said in the beginning, we're going to consider the traffic. Maybe you can take 3 machines if no one's there. If it's 5 in the morning and there's 8 people in the whole gym, go ahead, take 3. But just be considerate of others. That's all you need to do. And if you're ever not sure, the most important thing when it comes to gym etiquette is that the fitness community is overwhelmingly welcoming to beginners. You may be intimidated by the big guys with big veins who are sweating like crazy, lifting crazy amounts of weight, but I promise you, 99% of them would be overjoyed to show you how to do an exercise. They would love to show you the proper way to set something up. They would love to tell you whether you're doing something correctly, whether you're being polite, or whether you're getting in anyone's way. Just ask. And if you're not comfortable asking the guy next to you or the woman in front of you, ask the front desk. Ask the personal trainers if they're sitting around. Most of the time, they're gonna be more than willing to help you with basic questions like this to help you be more comfortable in the gym. We want people to embrace fitness. It's a lifestyle that's been very helpful for us. And if the etiquette is what is keeping you back, if that is what's making you anxious in the gym, please just talk to us, talk to a professional, or just talk to the guy next to you and see if they'll help you, because in many cases they will. A lot of people in fitness love to share fitness. It's what we love, and we love to invite more people to approach fitness in a productive way. So if you're ever not sure on etiquette in the gym, if you're ever not sure if you should be doing something, if you shouldn't be doing something, if you're allowed to do something, allowed being not prohibited by the gym's rules, but just like kind of bad courtesy, just ask. And most people will be willing to help you out so that you can go through your gym routine without getting in anyone's way and causing any conflicts, because that's always what we want to minimize. We just want to get our workout and get out. We don't want to cause any conflicts and make anything any worse than it already is. So just be respectful of your gym equipment, of the other fellow gym goers at your gym, the gym staff, and everyone there, and you'll be fine. And that's about going to wrap it up for this one. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this content and want to see more fitness content from EPT, go ahead and subscribe here for more videos, as well as on Facebook and Instagram at EPT Evanston. And if you haven't already, check out our free fitness tracking app on the App Store for free, available now.